Hey everybody, my name is Chad Cole, and I'm a former U.S. Marine, and I wrote a book called The Dirty Little Wars. Published it last year, and the book is largely about my time in the Marine Corps. The subtitle of the book is actually a U.S. Marine in the Los Angeles Riot and Somalia. So I was in the 1992 LA riot. For those who didn't know, the Marines got sent up into LA during the 92 riot. I was a young Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps at that time. And let me just say that I've written down some notes. This is mostly unrehearsed. I just wanted to voice a couple of things about what's going on today. Uh, Scrolling on my Facebook, and I see people from all walks of life, friends, people who I consider my friends with varying political views. They have different opinions on all these issues about what's going on. I had an email from someone I consider to be a friend who's also an author, and he's helped me. He promoted my book a little bit for me, and I loved his book. Not going to name drop, but a cool guy, and he was just sent me a message checking on me. Hey, are you, basically, are you, how you doing? Because he knew I had been in the riot. Now I'm not trying to be melodramatic, but for the last week or so, I've been intentionally avoiding most of the media coverage of all of this from all perspectives because there have been many occasions where I have allowed the media to grab me and manipulate me before I had all the information. Uh, there have been, and I have friends who are in law enforcement, things like that, and I've been guilty of jumping on a cause before I had all the facts. Been multiple times where I've got into it with friends of mine who were police officers and things like that. When I see what I think is, clear police brutality, and then all of a sudden there's more camera footage and more information, and I've allowed my emotions to get the best of me, and I've jumped in there and been like, this was wrong. But anyway, human nature is flawed, right? We know that. Our nature as humans, we are fallen, we are flawed. When we can understand that, when we face that truth that we are all flawed, we are imperfect, then we can understand that we put flawed men in positions of authority or in any walk of life, no matter where you are, everyone around us, myself included, we're all flaws. We have flaws, we make mistakes, we have shortcomings, we say things we shouldn't say, we do things we shouldn't say, our communication skills are always in need of improvement. I think this goes for all individuals. It's never okay to take a peaceful protest and turn it into a riot. It's never okay to destroy the property and the livelihood of another. Okay, there are forces in play. I think a lot of Americans are beginning to see that there are forces in play that want us divided by race and by gender and by economics and by any other method. They want us to be grouped and pitted against each other so that we cannot be strong as a nation in the defense of the rights of all individuals. All individuals deserve dignity and peace and freedom. law enforcement in this country, I say this as a veteran, uh, law enforcement has become increasingly militarized. I'm 48 years old, so I can speak with some authority, and also as a veteran and as someone who worked in personal protection. I was actually a bodyguard for 4 years, worked my way up in that line of work, carried a gun, did all those things, wore a suit. Uh, I'm only saying that to let you know that I have been on both sides of the fence, not only in the military, but in the private sector as well. But I'm a citizen first. Let me back up and just tell you, I'm making this video because I need to advocate for myself. I felt like I had a few things I just personally wanted to talk about. And I am the author of The Dirty Little Wars, and I wrote about the LA riot. And, I owe it to myself. I actually owe it to the work that I put into this book and the stories in my own book that I wrote to, put it out there and let people know in this time, I don't see it as an inappropriate plug at all. It's actually, there may be something in there that touches someone else, that wakes them up. You never know what your influence and or what your impact will be on others. So, right now is not the time for me to be quiet about the fact that I wrote a book about the LA riot. I was one of a few thousand Marines that were up there. Others may be able to tell the story better than I told it, and that's great. More people need to communicate their stories. Uh, I'm just saying that because the 1992 Rodney King riot that happened. I was a 19-year-old, 19 or 20-year-old young Marine, and I saw the video. I saw that video of Rodney King being beaten. Most of you, this was a new age. People were just now starting to have big, bulky video cameras they could take everywhere. Really, if that beating had not been captured on video and not been broadcast out to the world, there wouldn't have been rioting and an uprising like there was, and there should have been an uprising in a large degree. It's tragic and it's complicated. Those police officers that beat Rodney King, I don't know their names. I don't care. There were 4 of them. All 4 of them should have gone to prison. All 4 of them for what they did. He was on the ground, handcuffed, or soon thereafter. Y'all saw this was 20 plus years ago. My point is, I'm just giving you a little insight for those who don't know me, and you see this video and you see my face, and don't make assumptions as to where I may or may not stand. Let's be fair to each other here. They sent the Marines up into the riot, and I was eager to go up there to be a part of the group. Being in the Marines and with the unit, you want to prove yourself and do what you're supposed to do. This was not my idea of putting our skills, so to speak, to the test. That was not what I envisioned to happen in my time in the Marine Corps. Thankfully, we de-escalated quite a bit of the situation when we were there, but the place was destroyed, and I wrote about it. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about some of this stuff. This militarized police force presence in this country has increased exponentially since 9/11, and it's complicated. I know that we're a free society, and we're a society where free citizens do and should continue to own and train with their own personal firearms. I don't think that anyone who has ever had their business attacked or their home invaded by armed burglars or anything like that, you're seeing enough anecdotal information now. Everyone should be armed. Everyone. Armed and trained and ready to defend themselves and their loved ones against aggression from others. Now, that being said, I know it's complicated because, law enforcement should be able to do their jobs, and they should be allowed to do their jobs in a society that shows them enough earned respect. If you're raising your kids to be disrespectful to police officers, you're setting them up for failure. You're setting them up for tragic ends in many cases. In places like Los Angeles or other areas where people grow up and their entire lives are their entire life experience with dealing with law enforcement is being stopped and harassed and shoved around and treated poorly by poorly trained asshole police officers. It leads to what's going on right now in our country. The police officer, I'm not going to say his name, I don't know all those details still. It is never okay to do what was done to that man on the ground who was handcuffed on his face in the ground. This is basic stuff. But it's also not okay for peaceful protesters to have their message hijacked by violent radicals or rioters or people who instigate violence and vandalism and things like that. It's not okay. The president said it the other day. He made that comment about looting leads to shooting. I don't know the exact quote. His enemies in the media have blown that up as if it's not true. Look at me. His words were perfectly true. Looting leads to shooting because people take it upon themselves to defend their own property, or law enforcement gets involved and escalates the situation. Right or wrong, things go wrong and situations get out of control real quick when there is violence and looting and vandalism and people catching things on fire. Okay, now you're talking about potentially killing people because you've started a fire in a building. This should be common sense. Everyone watching this has got to have, you call yourself an adult, and you want to be treated like an adult, and you want to be respected and all those things. Then you have to have things that come to the table. You got to be held accountable for your choices, and you got to take responsibility for your actions, and you need to as an individual. Right? It's not okay to wreak violence on other people. And I'm seeing a lot of people and people in the media who are conflating the right to protest and the right to assemble, and the right to yell and scream and be very pissed off about an issue that they are righteous. It is righteous anger to protest the unlawful, illegal, unnecessary killing of a civilian by a police officer. But it is not okay to conflate that righteous anger among peaceful protesters with the actions of violent extremists who take the protest. They're no longer protesting. They're throwing things at police. Listen to me carefully. I don't care what color you are. I don't care where you're from. If you pick up an object on the ground and you throw it at the police or law or whatever, a horse, any law enforcement authority figure, including firefighters, paramedics, and things like that, you should expect to see an escalation of force directed at you. So you're taking matters into your own hands, then you should expect to see, unfortunately, violence. Violence is going to happen. This is common sense. Don't fall for the false narrative of the conflation, the confusion. It's intentional. The media is intentionally trying to conflate and confuse you about the people involved in these protests. Peaceful and even angry protest is not the same as rioters. Those are not the same, and they are not afforded the same privileges. When you go from protesting lawfully to rioting, that is unlawful, and now you're going down another path that you're going to reap what you sow. And I mean, it's unfortunate. On the same subject here, these police officers should be the cream of the crop from among us. We elect politicians, we put them in place, and those politicians, they hire the chiefs of police, and they hire the police officers, and they train those people. They work for us. Okay? They work for us. And I know I'm kind of riffing. I'm at 16 minutes. I don't even know. If anyone watches this, great. But I just wanted to get some of this stuff off my chest. Even as almost a 50-year-old white man in this country, I have seen enough from disrespectful, arrogant, cocky, rude-ass police officers in my experience as a civilian, and even working in private security and dealing with police officers. So don't tell me that the problem does not also lie with the police officers in this nation, the law enforcement in this nation, many who are undertrained, underscreened, and, I'm sorry, but when you put on your uniform and you go to work, this ain't Iraq. And, and ironically, I think most of the best police officers in this country are actually veterans who have been in combat zones, they've been in war zones, and they understand the difference, and they understand that the people are not the enemy. And if you can't go out there and be a professional every day, then you need to leave that line of work. You should be the best among us, right? Most citizens understand that. Cops don't get a blank check, but unfortunately they have been given too many times a blank check where police officers are not held accountable for their actions. For some reason, it just seems like a lot of, and I don't even think it matters what color the police officer is. Don't even make it about race. It's just about people that are in those positions of authority. They just seem to, the perception among Americans is that just can do whatever the fuck they want to do. They can just do whatever they want to do, and they're going to get away with it. And that's the perception, certainly among the minorities in this country. And that's really fucking frustrating. Active duty military in war zones, when they break and violate the rules of engagement or violate the Geneva Convention and things like that, soldiers and Marines and warriors, they are severely punished most of the time, severely punished for taking matters into their own hands, violating rules, doing whatever they want, killing indiscriminately, those kinds of things, or harassing people, So don't for 1 minute think that I think that any of these people, these law enforcement, should be getting off the hook. They have a tough job, and they need to be shown respect. They need to earn respect. It's too bad that there are, because of personal experiences that people growing up with in our society, where they've seen generational harassment. Let's just call it harassment by police. It's unfortunate because they're raising their kids to think the same way. And then, there's an altercation between a teenager and a police officer, and it'll end bad for the teenager. So, It's just this idea that we have to be intellectually honest and morally, we have to have intellectual integrity and moral integrity to do what's right, do the right thing, right? Be respectful. You know, most altercations, I still would like to believe that most altercations with the police officer can be de-escalated by the citizen, by hopefully by just following basic commands. You know, if they're telling you to put your hands up, you put your hands up, and if whatever, you know, I mean, and that doesn't give them, I'm not letting them off the hook, because it sure does seem like a lot of times complying with police officers may not be the guarantee that should be in place to keep you alive, or, you know, from getting injured. I mean, it's a very complicated issue. I know that. I'm not here to pander. I'm not here to tell people what I think they want to hear. You know, but I just wanted to get some thoughts out there about some of this. I hope I'm making some sense. But I'm gonna post this video, and maybe it'll get out there. You know, you got to turn off the television. It goes for all of us. You can't be letting the media grab your emotions and make you think and believe and say things based on emotion before we have all the facts. It's like I was saying before. I've been guilty of that, where you know, I've either jumped on the cops who I thought were in the wrong in an instance where they actually were handling a situation correctly, but at first glance it looks bad on the cop, and then I've, you know, defended cops when I shouldn't have. We are being led around by the noses by our media, who it is very clear, hopefully to you, I'm not here to convince you. Open your eyes and look. The media is stirring this shit on purpose. It is political. It is global. They want you divided. They want you angry. They want you categorized in collectives and then pushed against each other. That is the truth. If you can't see that, too bad. It's time to wake up for people. But, you know, I guess we just have to have the courage to try to go on. We're flawed. We got to get up the next day. You know, this morning I had to go to an appointment in a medical facility. I went to the dentist, and so I had to put on a fucking mask to go in there. Bandana on my face. I'm in Texas. In March and April, the world was going to end because of this virus. And I think enough people know this virus is real, and this virus is about something else too. It's about controlling you, keeping you in fear, locking you down. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? You know, as it pertains to these riots, riots don't just happen because they happen. Riots happen after months and months and years of incidents, little personal incidents that happen, and it builds up and then it blows up. So don't think I don't know. That's exactly what leads to these things. People are tired of fucking seeing videos of police officers shooting civilians. Tired of it. Tired of seeing militarized police forces, you know. Tired of and I'm not going to try to pander, because I'm a white man, and I'm not going to try to act like I'm something else or lived a different experience. I can tell you what I've experienced. I remember being a 14-year-old delinquent, raising hell in my hometown. Had a gun pointed at me more than once by a cop, by police officers. the reason I was telling you about the dentist, had to go in there and put on that mask, and it was really just, it's just really pissed me off and tried my patience, this whole thing in it. But the reason I'm telling you this is because of my attitude and what I'm putting out on other people. When I get pissy or irritated, it most of the time, these people I'm putting it out on, they don't deserve that. This girl working in the dentist office was in a good mood. She was doing her job the best she could do it, and I walk in there and I've got the look on my face that everybody knows. If they know me, they know, well, he's in a pissy mood. And that's on me to be honest with myself and realize I can't be like this. You can't be like this and go out in public and put your shitty attitude on somebody else. This goes for cops, this goes for civilians, this goes for all of us. We go out there with a shitty attitude, and that's what leads to problems. There are people out there intentionally stirring up bullshit and violence, and they are not the same, and they are not afforded the same rights as lawful protesters. Pissed off, angry, righteously so, righteous anger at the unlawful execution of a civilian by a police officer. Those people deserve to be angry. They deserve to be heard. And more than heard, some shit has got to change on these police forces. That's the issue. It's just this constant cycle of going back to nothing, and then, people burning down their own neighborhoods. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. None of it should be happening. Such a complicated issue. It's never okay, You're gonna if you're going to riot and you're going to throw rocks and light fires and flip over cars and attack police officers, you should fully expect to be put down by the police officer. That's what's awful. So there's got to be reform, right? Some sort of reform in place. Police should not be completely toothless, and they should have a means to defend themselves. But I don't like seeing police officers that look like they think they're in Iraq, or they think they're some kind of Green Beret, Navy SEAL looking force, and half of them are fucking 50 pounds overweight and bad attitudes, and they're looking for something to shoot. That's not correct. It's not good. It's not cool. And I'm old enough, I remember the way it was before 9/11. I served in the military before 9/11. And after 9/11, there have been a hell of a lot of these wannabe warrior types that are out there in law enforcement, and they're looking for trouble. And, maybe they have a hero complex or whatever it is. And I realize this is my personal opinion. But I'm tired of the cycle myself. And, I don't have all the answers. But I know that violence and war is not the answer most of the time. It's just not the answer. And that's cliche and it's simplified, but we got to come together. We can't allow those who don't have our best interest in mind to continue to force anger on us and project their agendas on us in a way that keeps us from being united and keeps us from listening to each other, keeps us with our guard up and defensive. When you start sentences with every and all and try to blame everyone for every problem instead of focusing, finding the problems, fixing problems. It's complicated, y'all. But We got to come together.